In this video, I'm going to explain the film technique of editing. Now, in my experience as an English and media teacher, I've often found that editing is one of the film techniques that my students find the most hard to analyze. And I think partly it's because we don't quite understand what it is. Often with editing, we think about the obvious stuff, the stuff that we really notice. Things like transitions, like you can have cross dissolves, and you can also have wipes. And those transitions are sometimes really obvious. Sometimes when we think about editing, we think about special effects, which is really a little bit different. So, we think about ways that we've edited the footage to add in amazing things. Wow, that's amazing! But again, that's not really what I want to talk about when I'm talking about editing. In order to think properly about editing, we need to really understand what editing is. And editing, at its basis, is just cutting together and organizing shots. Now, a shot is simply a continuous run of the camera. You hit record, you hit stop, everything you capture in between, that's a shot. In the olden times, before we had digital cameras, we would shoot onto film. It looked a bit like this. And so when you hit record and then hit stop, you'd get a run of film like this. And to edit it, you would literally cut it. That's why we talk about cutting between shots. You would literally sometimes use scissors to cut a bit of that footage off. And then you could take that piece out, get in a different piece, bring it back in, and again, literally tape it together. So now you've got one shot followed by another. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about a shot, and that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a cut. So the first thing I want you to think about when you're describing editing is the order of shots. How has the director placed one shot after another after another? Let me demonstrate with a really simple example. Let's say we have this shot of a strange man looking at something. Then we cut to a point of view shot to show what he's looking at. And finally, we cut back to a close-up of his reaction. Between those three shots, you very clearly get the story. You get the idea that he's looking at something and how he's feeling about it. In a similar way, we might want to create a sense of location or tell more about a character. So I might have first an establishing shot of the outside of a school. I can then cut to an extremely attractive man sitting at his desk. Because of the context, because of the first shot, we understand that this man is a teacher. If we hadn't had the shot of the school, we wouldn't know where he was and we wouldn't know who he is. He could be in his home office. He could be an office worker. He could be, a supermodel on his day off doing his accounts. Who knows? But by combining the shots, by cutting together two shots in a row, we get more of the story. Directors also use this technique to create juxtapositions. This is where we cut from one thing to another to create a connection between them. This was famously or infamously used by the Nazis in the Nazi regime in creating anti-Jewish propaganda. They would have shots of Jewish people in their homes, and then they would cut to a shot of rats. And this was designed to instill the idea that Jewish people were like rats. Obviously, that's a very horrible use of this technique. In a fictional film, you might have a shot of a romantic couple perhaps going on their first date, and then cut to a shot of the sunrise. And the sunrise, with its brightness and its symbolism of a new day, could tell you something about their relationship, that it's bright and wonderful and hopeful and just beginning. Or you might have a shot first of an ominous character, some kind of villain, and then cut to a shot of a spider eating a fly, and that could, again, create a connection between those two things. So that's a specific use of ordering shots called juxtaposition. Another thing you need to be able to talk about when you're discussing editing is the rhythm and the pace of the editing. And this one can be really challenging, but it's so important. Because editors take several shots and put them together into a continuous run, where they cut can change the rhythm and the pace. It can change the way you feel about that scene. So perhaps there'll be a really long run and then a cut, and then a really short bit and another cut, and then another really long shot, long duration shot. That really quick cut in the middle, that can change our mood. It might make something seem surprising. We might have long, even duration shots to create a sense of steadiness and stability. We could have it start slow and then speed up. and faster and faster and faster. And all of these different rhythms of the editing can help to increase suspense or create a sense of action or energy. So let's put that together. Let's consider the order of shots and the rhythm and pace of the editing in Alfred Hitchcock's famous 1963 film, The Birds. This scene's a little bit dated, it's a little bit over the top, but I chose it because it really illustrates how editing can be used in the ways I've been describing. So let's watch the scene now.
Look!
They're attacking again. Well, none of you stay in here. Come on now.
Look at the gas. That man's lighting a cigar.
Hey, you! Watch out! Don't drop that match! Look out! Get out of there!
Mister, run!
Watch out!
Mister,
Look out! Look out! Watch out!
So let's go back and watch that again, and this time I'll talk you through some of the editing techniques that I notice. First of all, notice that it started on an establishing shot, giving a sense of location. We've got this medium shot of the main character looking out the window. We see a point of view of what she's looking at, and then we see a close-up of the gas, the fuel, pouring across the ground. That shot going backwards and forwards between her looking, what she's looking at, and her reaction to it is helping to tell the story. It helps us know what's happening. Now this sequence, which seems a little bit silly today, but notice how the pace increases, cut, 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 until the big explosion. That increasing rhythm, that speeding up of the duration of each shot helps to create the intensity of the scene. And then we get this shot that lasts a very long time. It's to see and it cuts back to a long shot, an extreme long shot, to show the extent of the destruction. We build the suspense by increasing the pace of the editing, and then the audience has a chance to rest in the horror of what's just happened in that very long duration shot at the end. So I hope that was useful. I hope it makes it clear that when you're talking about editing, you really need to focus on how the director has chosen to order different shots to tell their story, and remember to think about the pace of the editing. How have they changed the duration of each shot, sped up or slowed down to increase intensity or to give the audience a moment to breathe? Have a think about editing next time you watch a film.